Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. Today I am painting probably the most shameful project in my pile of shame. Let me set the stage. Way back a year ago, I was playing a lot of Kill Team 2018.
With me!
Right. And we decided to give each other a challenge. We both wanted to try some new factions and we thought it'd be fun to secretly buy and paint kill teams, then unveil them to each other. It was going to be exciting, it was going to be a whole thing. But then we got busy and eventually Kill Team 18 ended, so these armies have sat around. Your army was?
Thousand Suns Rubik Marines, blue and gold Chaos Space Marines.
And my army was the Heretic Astartes Night Lords, which are blue and gold Chaos Space Marines. Again, this was secret, completely separate from each other. We both picked basically the exact same thing and then gave up. So I think it's been long enough. The time has come. We will both finish. Nope. Well, I'm gonna finish my Night Lords. I don't often play as the bad guys. When I play RPG video games, I always choose the good options, and I play the rebels in Star Wars Legion. And this has even trickled into 40k. I know everyone in 40k is the bad guys, but most factions can at least be argued that they're living their lives and doing what they do. But the Chaos Space Marines are just here to burn it all down. I picked the Night Lords because I like their colors, and I got like 60% of the way through painting them in the classic Games Workshop style, with some awesome aftermarket vampire heads I found from Puppets War. Luckily for me, I was dumb enough to build these models in sub-assemblies, so the arms aren't glued on and I can give them the appropriate options for Kill Team 2021. Sub-assemblies aren't dumb, but I don't like them. They just slow me down by turning one model into two or more. If I can't reach it with a brush, I usually just leave it unpainted. Now, the only problem in converting this Kill Team 18 team into modern Kill Team is I only have 5, and I need a 6th member of the team. And I had an idea. The new thing of this edition is I can take a Psyker, and Psykers are super powerful people. I don't necessarily need an Astartes. All I need is some kind of a magician proxy. I need a Chaos Vampire Sorcerer, and I think Adepticon is the perfect place to find that mini. This was kind of the perfect storm. Thank goodness it's taken me a year to finish these guys because now I have the opportunity to find my 6th member of the team. I scoured the vendor hall looking at all of the lovely models to find my vampire. And I ran across a lot of good options, but only one that made me pull the trigger. This box of Newborn Strigoi from Carnival by TT Combat. This vampire lady should be the perfect candidate to become my heretical witch. I don't think the Chaos Space Marines care much about rules and regulation. If she's powerful enough to hang with the Superboys, they say, "Welcome aboard, let's go fuck shit up." I sliced into the clam pack, cutting towards myself as always. These models really butter my biscuits. Hopefully down the road I can find uses for the other two vampires, the punky vampire and the cowboy vampire. I needed to recreate my bases, so I marked out the base topper of cork and then I tore it off with my fingies. Then I superglued it down to the base using tons of glue. Cork is porous, so you need a lot to keep it stuck down. Then I marked out where I wanted my babe and drew marks where her foot goes. Then I started gouging out material. I tore off cork like a kid tears the wrapping paper off his Christmas presents, carefully and with a hobby clipper. This analogy works. Then I pinned my model in place. You don't always have to pin, but one little foot attached to soft cork, a pin is definitely needed here. Then I wanted to give her some spells to cast, so I took some skulls and some green stuff and smushed it onto the dome. Then I shaped it into a cone head and then took a hobby knife and made lots of little vertical cuts to turn this green goo into crackling fire. I let that dry and I put some floral wire into her wrist to hold up the skulls. This was tricky to do, but it gave me that look I was after. I glued the spells into place and my vampire witch was coming along nicely. Then I spread some texture paste all over, not really to hide the cork, but to build up surface. Then I spread on some crackle medium. This stuff is great because it makes something cool happen without me needing to do a whole bunch of work. After about 4 hours, I had lovely cracks all over my base. Then I spread on some wood glue, my preferred sand holder downer, and sprinkled on some pebbles. Then a dousing of fine grained sand. And now I have an interesting base with a very interesting Chaos Night Lord Vampire Witch. This model is gonna make the perfect Bale Fire Acolyte. I was a little nervous walking around the convention floor that I wasn't gonna find the perfect model that fit all of my parameters. A Chaos Sorcerer Vampire, but this model definitely does it, especially with the two little skulls. And this model is really gonna save my biscuits because I have 5 Space Marines basically finished painted, and this model is gonna save me from having to paint a 6th. And speaking of painting, now you might have noticed that this babe is the odd one out, but I want her to fit in, and the way I'm gonna do that is by painting her blue. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, if her skin is gonna be blue and her hair isn't gonna be blue and the skulls aren't gonna be blue and her legs aren't gonna be blue and the base is gonna be blue, why would you paint it all blue? Well, I know, but this is a blue army, and you'll see, a blue base coat will enhance all those other colors, not take away from them. The zenithal will help the blue pop where it needs to, and I gave it 2 thin coats. This is the same blue I used on the dudes, so it should make her feel like a proud member of the blue team. I'm blue, dabba dee dabba da, dabba dee dabba da, dabba dee dabba da. Now I've heard that it can help with OSL, object source lighting, to start with it rather than doing it at the end, so I sprayed my warp fire skulls with some bright green to see what happens. Then it was time to prepare a wet palette. I kept it simple: red, beige, gray, black, and white. I want this paint job to be quick, so I'm going to water down my colors with some paint medium, and then I went to town base coating with big wet coats of paint. This will add color, but it's not a traditional 2 thin coats. I want the blue underneath to show through, and I want the paint to flow and pool where it wants to. The physics of paint is a lot smarter than me, and if I just let the paint do what it wants to, it'll probably end up better than if I tried to force it myself. And it'll save me tons of time, as I don't need to build up layer after layer to get a perfect coverage just so that I can add more paint on top. With my watery base coats on, I did the same steps again, making myself dark versions of my original colors with mixing paint, and then watering them down and putting them over my previous layers. Now I have some good shading and highlighting, and it was all really quick. My colors were looking pretty good, but lacking a little highlighting. Because my original blue was so dark, I did a little dry brushing to bring these colors up. I'm a little less than an hour in, and I've been glazing and dry brushing, easy techniques that I don't have to be too careful with, and the model's about 70% done. And now it's right where I want it to be. I get to do some highlighting, some edge highlighting, some freehanding, my favorite parts of the model because they're all final brush strokes. Everything I do now is a finishing touch. I mixed the colors on my palette with white and then glazed these over top of my previous work, letting the OG blue zenithal be my guide to where these should go. I used the highlights to bring attention to the places I wanted: her face, hair, and arms. And I didn't do much of anything to her flowing dress, as my previous washes shaded it nicely. Then I had to break out the micro brushes to get her fangs and eyes just right. Very spooky. So, one model done, and it might be my favorite. I may not be able to play this model at events at Warhammer World, but it'll be a great count-as for my Balefire acolytes. Now, the only other thing I'm missing for a proper Nachmund legionary kill team is a Reaper chain cannon toting heavy gunner. And I don't want to buy a box of Havocs for $60 just to get one little bit. So I scribbled out a little something, and I'm gonna ask Nick to make me one.
I mean, I can do this. It'll be $59. A drawing is always a good starting point, but to fit into the Games Workshop Chaos Space Marines aesthetic, I'll have to put some references together for inspiration. Warhammer guns are always way too big in proportion to the models. This is for ease of painting, and it accentuates the importance of the weapons. The only dimension Jay gave me was that the wrist is 4mm. Because we don't know exactly how big the gun should be, I'm going to make a basic version similar to the sketch and print it out to see if the size is right. I'm using Vectorworks to make this because I can model quickly and non-destructively, just in case I need to adjust proportions later. After making it too big, I got it just right, and now I'm free to detail as I please, looking at the reference images to create this ornate trim, and of course, the exposed bullets that look like hot dogs in plastic wrap. This gun was a nice quick project and will add to the uniqueness of Jay's Nightlords team. And because you're all so nice, I'll make this gun free to download for anyone. The link is on our Patreon, and while you're there, you might want to see what we have to offer.
Over there, we got high quality terrain STLs, viewer model critique videos, a weekly hobby hangout live stream, and more. It's the best way to support us, so head on over to Patreon to get access to even more Eons of Battle. We also have merch, link in the description. Ooh, yeah, that's the good stuff right there. These little guns are great. They printed well, and after a coat of primer, there are no layer lines whatsoever. These two little chain guns together will give the same effect that one big ol' gun has. He's really double fisting, if you know what I mean. I base coated the Double Reaper chain guns with blue on the arms, earth brown on the trim, and gray on the guns, then washed them with blue and black. This is some simple non-metallic metal, and it's how I like to start true metallic metals. I simply dry brush a little silver on top to get that metallic glisten. This is my favorite way to do true metallic metals now, but a year ago when I was painting up the gold on these guys, I did classic Games Workshop true metallic metal, and I guess I gotta keep going that way to keep everything consistent. Better clear my schedule because this is gonna take a while. So first 2 coats of gold because gold paint covers like butt, then 2 coats of Reikland Flesh Shade to get some contrast, then a selective wash of Karabog Crimson. Now there is contrast, but the gold is dull, so I highlighted back with the original gold, then an edge highlight of silver everywhere. And boom, just like that, in like 10 long, tedious, difficult steps, the gold is done. On one guy. 4 more to go. So that takes care of my Chaos Gunner. The only other model I don't have built is the Chaos Anointed. That's a Space Marine who's been touched by the warp, and he's about 2 days away from either being a Chaos Spawn or a Chaos Possessed. And the problem is I don't have a lot of Chaos bits. But what I do have is some Wolfen arms and an old school Gene Stealer. So, see what I can do with these. I took the Wolfen arms, don't ask why I have these, and I used some green stuff to fill them up and give them some connection points. These gave him some fun monster arms. And speaking of monster arms, I cut the hands off the old school Tyranid and then I stuck them down to the arms. This makes for quite the look. I base coated Mr. Tickle Monster's arms blue, then gave them a wash. Then I made a dark beige from the leftover colors from my witch and then glazed these onto the arms until I had some pink spots. I used some blue paint to soften these areas, and now painted up, it looks way less ridiculous. Now with all these bad boys and gals painted, it was time to finish those bases. Just a little brown paint and orange pigment powder, and these puppers were ready for battle. I liked what I was seeing, but I could do more. I prefer when basing to have a little accent to break up the monotony of colored dirt. So I'll use some debris from a company called Epic Basing. I painted these little metal chunks up silver and then glued them down to my bases. It's the little things that add so much. To finish these bad boys and girls off, I used orange pigment powder to bring it all together. I love how this team turned out. I have moved away from the Games Workshop style of painting, but it was an interesting experiment to be forced into it. I don't know how much heavy metal painting I'll be doing moving forward, but I can't argue with the results. So now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, the grand reveal of how I painted the witch's cleavage. Cleavage is a very common thing to find amongst miniatures. I think just about every painter is gonna come across it in their painting career, and I have a few tips and tricks to share, because I think there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. I highlighted her face all the way up to white so that it really pops and draws attention. But I don't want to highlight her cleavage up to white because it'll compete with her face for attention. It'll naturally draw the eye, so I don't need to focus on it as much. I made a dark version of the beige and then put this over her bust. That way I'm working up from a darker tone so that I have the same amount of contrast, but I can end up with beige and not work all the way up to white. I applied my highlights, transitioning from dark to light dark and then ending up at a more mid-tone color. And there, her bosom has been given the highlights it deserves while keeping the face the focal point of the model. I'm a loyalist Space Marine guy, but it's hard to argue that these Chaos Space Marines don't look way cooler. I may have caught a touch of the warp after this project. This has become by far my favorite kill team I've made. It's not just cool, but it brings me such a personal satisfaction. The history of the secret kill team project, the proxy model I bought at Adepticon, the custom guns Nick designed and printed for me, and the dumb brute arms I kit bashed. It all comes together to make the greatest fire team I have ever assembled. My 15th kill team finished. I'm very excited to get these guys in the game, and I am very proud to be the first person ever to have finished their Necmund Legionary kill team.
Macbeth's been out for like a month. Everybody's already finished painting their legionaries.
Well, I'm excited to have finished my Legionary kill team. Thanks for watching.